What up, y'all? Appreciate you showing up, hanging out, listening to my dumbass. Like and subscribe. So, it seems that Microsoft, Xbox, is taking over the industry. Everywhere you look, everywhere you go, everywhere you look, there's I don't know the words. Sorry. Yeah. And I was thinking, right? I was like, okay, like in the past, Sony has done remakes, right? They did the Shadow of the Colossus. They did, what was it? Demon Souls? Yeah, Demon Souls. They did other ones, but it's, whatever. It's slipping my mind. So they know how to do remasters, if you will. Remakes. I don't know what they called those games, because those are equivalent to what Oblivion is, basically the underlying code with a fresh coat of paint, new models and environments and all that stuff. And so they know how to do that. But they did stuff like Days Gone remastered. And I'm like, huh? And then and the whole Last of Us remastered X2 times 3 times. I'm like, huh? So I'm like, well, how is it that Xbox, who doesn't really do a lot of remasters, I mean, when they did stuff, it was just like backwards compatible, smart. It's not smart delivery, but it's FPS boost, resolution boost. I don't know what they call that actually, but like the old games just worked, and they got a resolution boost and they got a FPS boost automatically for free. But then when Xbox goes and say, oh, let's do something, and they do it the smart way. I mean, I believe Sony does it the same way, so it's smart having an outside team do it so that your prime teams, if you will, can continue to work on the newer games and newer stuff, not get bogged down by remakes and remasters, which was, I think that was a mistake that Naughty Dog had a hand in doing the remasters, and so that's why we don't have new games from Naughty Dog since, I don't even know when The Last of Us 2 came. I don't remember. Was it 5 years ago? Anyway, so Xbox is in everyone's rent-free in everyone's mind, on everyone's tongue. Xbox Game Pass. I never thought that it would happen like this, where it's just like a literal takeover of the industry by Microsoft, by Xbox, because still a part of me is still has that old school state of mind where it's like, oh, consoles, sell the most consoles, and then everything else, if you sell the most consoles, then you win, right? And basically that's what it has been, because more consoles mean more players, mean you sell more games. That's what it used to mean. But now it's different, because back in the day when that was the case, the console versions versus there weren't PC versions of, like, you go, oh, Genesis, right? Oh, I got Streets of Rage. There's no Streets of Rage on the PC. PC couldn't run Streets of Rage like that. Well, I mean, Amiga could, probably, but they never ported it, because I think the Genesis was still, a little bit more efficient. It's the architecture, right? And the cartridge was faster as opposed to the discs, the little 3 1/4 discs. Were they 3 1/4? They were small. The plastic ones, the small ones. But now technology's changed and things are different. I'm not even talking about cloud and streaming like that. I'm just talking about how these consoles, Xbox and PlayStation, are just PCs. Back in the day, they were custom built machines. The 68,000 CPU, that was Motorola, right? That was the heart, that was the brains of the Genesis and many and the Amiga 500. Many consoles. Well, it was they doubled up on that one. I think the 32X had an extra one, and I'm not sure what the Saturn had. So that was 32-bit, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Back to sorry for the tangent. But we're looking at what's going on right now, and PlayStation ain't got no games. And you see like J-Dub, you see all these, you see Porter Rock, they barely got anything to talk about because PlayStation ain't got no games. I think they talking about Ghost of Yotei because they came out with that that goofy ass trailer. Like, look, we shadow dropped the trailer. It's like, that's not how that works. You shadow dropping ads now? Sounds like desperation. Sounds like you just want to be a part of the club. Look, I could do it too. It's like, nice try. Come back when you have a game. How about that? Come back to the club. We might let you in when you have a game to shadow drop. Not just an ad for a game that comes out in October, something like that, 3rd or something. No, I don't know. Look, it must feel real bad right now to be a PlayStation opponent or Donkey Unicorn. I'm not gonna say a PlayStation fan because anecdotally, but not really. I was talking to some PlayStation players today. One in particular, a little kid. And he's got a bigger brother, and his bigger brother wants to buy a PlayStation 5 Pro. And, you know, like I told my friend, and he's like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And I said, look, $700 is a lot of money, and you're not really going to get, you know, he bought one, and he doesn't see the difference. You know, firsthand, you know, he can't tell. And so I'm like, you see what's happening is that the sentiment around PlayStation is diminishing. It's evaporating, and it's because they're not saying anything. They're not communicating. They didn't give you a roadmap. So you don't have a map. You're gonna wander aimlessly, and then you're gonna say, "Oh, there's a map over there." Xbox got a roadmap. Let's go and follow that map, since we don't want to be lost all our lives, or for the rest of this generation. And so you go, hey, Xbox got a map. Let's go follow that map. And where's the land? It leads you to the promised land of Game Pass, where there's new games popping off all the time. So many that Expedition 33 and Fallout and Oblivion dropped on like the same day, basically. And the Expedition people weren't even mad. They were like, what's up, bro? We on the same team. Let's share this. It's enough to go around for everybody. We feeding all these fools, and they hungry, and they gonna eat it all. Pause. So, you know, like back in the day, you're like, oh my gosh, Titanfall 2 launched between Battlefield and Call of Duty, and that's why it failed. I'm gonna say, maybe, possibly. I mean, it did affect it. The fact that it was in the middle of, you know, especially Call of Duty, not so much Battlefield. But this is a perfect example. The same day Oblivion comes out and Expedition 33, right? And they're both getting praises, and people are both playing them. And people will go and play Expedition because it's going to be like, it's a nomination for Game of the Year already. That and Blueprints, and I haven't even played that. I got it downloaded too. I haven't played that. And what else? Wow. I would say Avowed, but I think Expedition's gonna knock that out. Like, as far as RPGs, I think Expedition's gonna knock that out the running. What else? There was something else that came out. I don't know. Oh, South of Midnight. I finished that last night, by the way. That's a good game. I'm gonna say Game of the Year. It's gonna win something. Let's just be real. It's gonna win art direction. It's gonna win music. It's gonna win something. Voice acting, actor, performer. It's gonna win something. Maybe not Game of the Year, but it's gonna win something. I guarantee you. If it doesn't win anything, then, I mean, I always say Game Awards are like hot trash garbage anyway. You don't really need them, and they're worthless for the most part. But yeah, if it doesn't win something, I'm like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, it's definitely gonna win something because it's too good of a game. It's too good of a game. It has too many good parts of it that there's no choice. It's gonna win. But you know, like I said last video, Xbox is feeding us and feeding us and feeding us. And shout out to y'all who got that reference in chat in the comments. Actually, it's a dual reference. Honestly, I think it came originally from Seven, the movie Seven, and then Method Man grabbed it for the was it on his album? I think it was on his album, right? Yeah, I think it was on his album. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, so, Xbox is giving us games. And, Xbox has always been, Microsoft has always been on the long game plan, right? Like, set this up. They set up their servers. Now they're not running the server infrastructure, but they are in competition with AWS, Amazon, right? So it's like Azure's got a foothold, got it in the headlock, the streaming, the server stuff, and it helps them as a gaming company because they use their server farms or whatever, part of it for streaming, blah blah blah. I mean, Amazon tried that with Luna, and I guess Luna's still around. Is it? I don't. Wait, was that? Yeah, that's Luna, right? I'm thinking about Google. What was Google? I can't remember what it was called. Anyway, so we're looking at all these things. Like I said, they play in the long game, right? So they get the servers, whatever. That's a whole different business, but it still affects the console stuff. It still is in line and not adjustable, but adaptable to benefit the console end of their businesses. And then you have the acquisition of all, whether it's Bethesda, which is turning out to be way better than I even anticipated. I always knew their games were, bangers or whatever, and people loved them. Skyrim was a super giant hit. I fell in love with Bethesda, BGS, when I played Oblivion. I can't even talk. Oblivion the first time. So, I'm like, cool. And Fallout, I played it. I was like, not as good as Oblivion, but sure, whatever. So that was cool. Obsidian, that was an awesome get because they're putting out bangers fast. Like, at the tempo that they're putting out games is how each and every one of these AAA game studios should be putting out games. They're putting out 2 games in 1 year. How? What did it take them? 4? How long was it since the Outer Worlds, the first one? Well, yeah, 4 years, maybe 5 years. I don't remember, but I'm like, yo, this is crazy, and it's probably more. Well, they got the cadence, they got the skills. They're doing Thug Thizzle, right? Avowed was dope. It was a new IP, and people loved it. So, you're looking at what Microsoft bought, what they acquired, and their performance. Arcane, we'll see. They had to close down Austin because Redfall was trash. Okay, it's not trash, but it's definitely not what it should have been, and that was because it was in development turmoil, if you will. And they, it's kind of like what's happening with Marathon right now. They had a game, they switched. Late in the game, they changed it to try to put it all together, and this is what happens, right? It's supposed to be, I guess, a multiplayer service game by mandate by Bethesda, because everybody was trying to do it, just like Sony's trying to do it, Marathon, and and they changed it to a single player, and it's trash. Is it a co-op? I don't remember. I think it is co-op, but whatever, doesn't matter. It's not what it was intended to be, and the people making it didn't really want to make it. There's a whole bunch of stuff that was wrong with Redfall, and that's why it failed, and that's why they closed the studio. And we can say Hi-Fi Rush, but that's part of Bethesda, and that was the reasons why that studio closed. But you see, like, the successes, you see, like, the nurturing of certain studios that are tried and true. They make bangers. Let's give them time. Let's give them money. Let's go. And that's what's happening. And PlayStation, I mean, they've always done that, so I give them points for that. But the problem with what Sony's doing and has been doing for the past, 5 years or so, is that they're making games, I said this last video, they're making games that people don't want. And they're spending money on these games that people don't want. Yes, they're giving it time, and yes, it comes out super polished, and yay, it's like production value's high, but in the core of the game, it's like, not so much. We don't like this character. I went off last video about if your main character's trash, nobody wants to play that character. So that's a whole nother thing that happens with hero shooters. If all your heroes and your hero shooter are stupid and nobody cares, Concord. That's what happens. The biggest failure in the history of video games happens. Thank you, Sony, for opening our eyes. You taught everyone a lesson. I don't know if you learned a lesson, because Marathon is like, Marathon is so mid. Not even by my standards, because, I mean, am I going to play it? Not if I have to pay $40, $50, whatever it costs. I'm not paying to play a half-ass, not complete game. And what they're saying is, oh, we're going to help build the game with the community. I'm like, y'all are so full of shite. It's ridiculous. How can you sit there straight-faced and tell people the game's not finished, we want y'all to finish it with us? What happened? I had this kind of discussion, or we were talking about that. Well, they were talking about it in our comment, you guys, in the comment section, where they were saying, yeah, I mean, I said it last video too, where Apple and companies would say, people don't know what they want. We have to show them what they want, basically. I'm paraphrasing, right? And I'm like, okay, sure, but if what you put out there is what you think people want, but it's not what people want, how does that work? How can you say that when what you put out is not what people want? It doesn't work if it doesn't work. So when you say, oh, people don't know what they want until we show them what they want, it's like, listen, that's a very reductionist way of saying that, but it also has to be good first. and that's subjective, obviously. But when Steve Jobs was saying it, he was talking about the technology of the physical, actual phone, right? Like people were used to having a little keyboard, the QWERTY key, beep, 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 Blackberries and stuff, right? Little the numbers, and you have the 3 letters on each number. You go boop, 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 boop. You're doing typing like that, which was a pain in the ass. And then Steve was like, why can't we just be in the future and then touch it with our fingers and everything's touch and touch. And, maybe some old people are like, I know there were people who say, I like the physical buttons. I like the clickety-clack. All the old people, old fogies are like, I can't know, how do you do, where's the buttons, right? And then they made it, and then people were like, yo, this is dope. Swip, swipe, blip, blow, blipe, right? And so that's a perfect example of what he was talking about. But you look at what Sony's making as far as hardware, and it's like, it's just a console. You didn't do anything special. Even in the heart and the architecture itself, it's nothing special. They overclocked it so it would be as fast or almost as fast as the Xbox Series X. Speaking of that, someone did a comparison, Digital Foundry, of Forza Horizon 5 on the Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5 Pro. Guess what? The Xbox Series X performs better than the PlayStation 5 Amateur. PlayStation 5 Pro is better because it has more power, obviously. But it's marginal, and they were like, yeah, you can't really tell the difference. And in some instances, I guess the LOD was higher on the X versus the Pro. I don't know. It's just like, once again, not worth the money. And part of this whole, the equation and the formulas of this business is you give a product, right? You create a product and say, oh, that's cool. And then you create a compelling price for people to just be like, no brainer, I'm buying that. I got to be an idiot not to buy that. PlayStation failed that. They said, yeah, we're going to make a Pro. It's going to be super expensive because we feel it's worth it. And then people looking at it like, no, it's not worth it. When anyone says, no, it's not worth it, in earnest, for real, you have a really big problem. And the same thing is kind of happening with the Switch. And so, yes, they will sell old Switches, but your new Switch is not going to, Switch 2 is not going to sell like the old Switch did. So until they drop the price, only whales, only the rich people. Maybe they'll just have Black Friday sales. Who knows? And maybe they'll sell then, but you know, this is what's popping off in the industry. And you know, I'm looking at how Microsoft and Xbox are moving, and they're, like I said, they're feeding us, and it feels like it's never gonna stop, because it's like, you know, we have a handful of games. It's like, you know, ever since I guess Hellblade dropped, it was like bam, 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 all good games, right? And we haven't even gotten to like Blade or like a whole bunch of other games, Project Mara. There's a whole bunch of games that I forget that they're like, yo, Fable, that's my most anticipated Xbox game. Perfect Dark, I'm super interested. I'm like, yo, I look up. Look, there's no competition right now as far as first party output. No competition. Xbox number one. Xbox is winning. Xbox One. You want to talk about console war, right? Let's talk about the I guess, how do you say, video game content war sound. Let's just say game war. The video games war, right? You look at both sides or three sides, whatever. Xbox has the best games coming out from now into the future. Period. They have more, and they look more interesting. I want to play more Xbox games than I want to even think about looking at PlayStation. PlayStation games are boring and redundant and repetitive. Ghost of Yotei, no thanks. I want to play as Jin. Where's Jin? Why isn't Jin in this sequel? They blew it. They blew it because they want to put a lady as a samurai or whatever. Look, I got no problem with that. This is all fictional stuff. But at the same time, you want to try to be historical to a certain extent. Put an authentic type of things in your game. You know, I'm sorry to say it, but, you know, back in the day, even now, but, you know, even more so back then, the women, they have no rights. Not really. You know, women were trashed. That's just how it was. You know, in certain countries, that's still how it is. Which is, you know, it sucks, but, you know, that's the reality. And so, I'm not saying every game needs to be like that. But your characters need to be really compelling to do something like, you know, like it's a historic game, and we understand it's like doing a game about slavery and all the slaves are white in America. It's like, well, how this is an alternate timeline, because this is not how it happened. You know, it's unbelievable. And then you're like, I have no disbelief. I can't not believe this, because it's just too far. I can't suspend it. Can't do it. That was a bad example, but but I'm just saying, you know, certain things of historical reference, you know, it could add to the world building. I mean, they could have done so many different things aside that. But whatever. I mean, it'll probably be a good game mechanically. Technically, technically it looks like a PlayStation 4 game, but what are you gonna do? That's all they've been doing this generation, making PlayStation 4 games, acting like they're PlayStation 5 games. So this is what they've been doing, right? So they've been making PlayStation 4 Pro games. And then the PlayStation 5 is the PlayStation 4 Pro. Because the PlayStation 5 Pro is the PlayStation 4 Pro. You notice that the games, like PlayStation 4 games, work on PlayStation 5 Pro. I'm just saying. Anyway, they full of remakes, they full of remasters, they full of old games, nothing new. They ain't saying nothing new. And it's boring and it's tired, and their fans are starting to get tired of it. And people are starting to get Xboxes. People are starting. I mean, Game Pass is going to start getting more followers and more subs, because that's where all the games are. Period. That's it. That's all. But anyway, I appreciate you hanging out on tonight. Like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you think about Xbox dominating the PlayStation Store with their games. It's ridiculous. Every time I go to see a video, all I see is Xbox dominating, Oblivion this, Expedition 33 that. even though Expedition 33 is not a Xbox game, it still feels like it's being treated as such because it's in Game Pass. I know I said it last video, but that's what's up. But anyway, I'll talk to you on the next one. Till the wait.